As we turn the page, we are confronted with some rather astonishing Nimrod fairy tales. It's odd that a historian like Tabari would jettison his chronology to insert these randomly throughout his depictions of Noah and Abraham. I'm surprised that he even presents them at all, but nonetheless they are there, and thus we must deal with them.
Tabari. Nimrod's arrogance and rebelliousness against his Lord went on for a long time, some say 400 years, in spite of Allah's forbearance with him.
The pot calls the kettle black.
Nimrod was arrogant. He was the first tyrant on earth.
As a result,
Allah sent gnats against them.
That would be the Babylonians, I suppose.
And they ate their flesh and drank their blood, and nothing but their bones were left. But Allah gave Nimrod a single gnat, which entered his nostril, and went on beating inside his head with hammers for 400 years. The most merciful of his friends was he who bunched up his hands and beat Nimrod's head with them.
That really made him mad.
Nimrod vowed to seek out Abraham's God, so he took 4 eagle fledglings and nurtured them on meat and wine, so they grew up tough and strong. Then he tied them to a chest and sat in it. He suspended a piece of meat over them, and they flew up trying to reach it. When they had risen in the sky, Nimrod looked down and beheld the earth. He saw the mountains crawling below him like creeping ants. When they had risen still higher, he looked and saw the earth with a sea surrounding it. After climbing still higher, he came into a region of darkness and could not see what was above or what was below him. He became frightened and threw the meat down. The eagles followed it, darting downward. When the mountains saw them coming near and heard their noise, they became afraid and almost moved from their places, but did not do so. As Allah says, verily they have plotted their plot, and their plot is with Allah, even if their plot were one whereby the mountains should be moved.
This became Koran 14:46. I recognize that the Islamic hadith are designed to explain the Koran, but this one is counterproductive, and sadly there is no excuse. These fables were concocted 1,000 years after the frivolity of pagan myths had been exposed to reason. This is long after Moses, David, Solomon, Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle enlightened the civilized world. With that in mind, let's examine the Quranic problem Mohammad was trying to solve. In the 41st verse of the 14th surah we read,
"Think not that Allah is oblivious. Hastening forward, their heads upraised, their eyes staring aghast, and their hearts vacant, warn people of the day when the punishment shall be inflicted upon them. Then will the wicked say, Lord, give us a respite, so we shall respond to your call and follow the apostles. What? Did you not swear before that there will be no reverse for us?"
Evidently, the inebriated eagles didn't have reverse either.
Koran 14:46. And they are plotting their plots, but their plan is evident to Allah, even though their plot is so adroit as to make the mountains move.
So there you have it. Muhammad needed to come up with a plot that was capable of making the mountains move for the Quran to make sense. That drunken eagle bit was perfect. The surah that claims Allah isn't oblivious ends with these words.
Koran 14, verse 47. Therefore do not think Allah will fail in his promise to his prophet. Surely Allah is mighty, the Lord of retribution.
That's pretty clear, and so is this.
On the day the earth shall be changed into a different earth, you will see the guilty bound together in chains. Their shirts will be made of molten pitch, and the fire will cover their faces, so that Allah may reward each soul.
Why do 1 billion people worship such a sadistic God? The Nimrodian tradition continues to scuttle any remnant of credibility Islam may have otherwise retained.
Tabari. They took off from Jerusalem, and they fell down in the mountain of smoke. When Nimrod saw this method would accomplish nothing, he began building the tower, taller and taller. Then he voided excrement through it. Allah seized his building by its foundations, and the roof fell down upon them, and doom came upon them, whence they knew not.
This became Koran 16:26. Dare we poke through the excrement and find Allah's little problem? Or do we just chalk this one up to diarrhea of the mouth? We've come this far. Why give up now? Hold your nose if you must. Verses 22 through 25 of the 16th surah say that non-Muslims are puffed up with pride, probably from holding their noses, and living in denial. But Allah is onto them like stink on, well, you know what. The big guy asks,
"What has your Lord sent down?" They answer, "Tales from long ago."
In other words, a blend of plagiarism and stolen Hebrew and Babylonian myths. As you will discover in the source material appendix, the Islamic clerics in Baghdad who fleshed out the Koran in the 8th century attempted to make it more religious by usurping myths and fables from the Talmud, uninspired Jewish folklore. That somehow leads us to this.
Quran 16, verse 26. "Those who have gone before them had also conspired."
Have you noticed how many plots there are in the Koran? Everybody has a conspiracy going, even Allah.
"Then Allah uprooted their structure from its foundations. The roof fell over them from above, and punishment came upon them from where they did not suspect."
Okay, I understand. Without the context of the Hadith, the Koran doesn't make any sense. But with the context, nothing makes sense.
Tabari. "Then it fell, and on that day the languages of mankind became confused from fright, and mankind came to speak 73 languages. Before that, the only language had been Syriac. It was called Babel."
In the midst of the stench, there are some pearls. The first written languages, Sumerian and Akkadian, were created around 3000 BCE. They were used by the Sumerians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. Aramaic was used as the basis for Syriac some 3,000 years later. But the confession is enlightening. The Syrian Christians were the first to write Arabic. They developed its alphabet in the 6th century. Written Arabic, from which the word Quran was derived, didn't make its way into Central Arabia, and therefore to Mecca, until after Mohammad alleges the Quran was revealed to him in Arabic. So this ridiculous notion that Syriac was the first language is designed to solve a problem our Muslim pals have with their timeline. The alphabet of the Quran was actually unknown when the book was revealed. As we move through this collection of inspired hadith, we are given another glimpse behind the veil of Islam.
"We are only growing farther from heaven," Nimrod said. "Descend."
Now you know which way to look to find Allah.
Tabari. "The unbelievers were Nimrod and Nebuchadnezzar, while the believers were Solomon bin David and Alexander."
I bet you didn't know that the resolutely pagan Alexander the Great was a monotheistic Muslim, or that the devoutly Jewish King Solomon was Islamic.
In the same way, Nebuchadnezzar was warlord of the lands extending from Awaz to the land of the Byzantines lying west of the Tigris before Luhshra. He was bruised by fighting the Turks.
8th grade history and a good timeline would have done these boys a world of good. But unfortunately, they were up to no good. Not even 20% of this has been believable. We have been regaled with a steady stream of impossibilities, contradictions, and fairy tales. This has got to be the most feeble attempt at religion ever postulated by man. A crime has been committed. The evidence commands a verdict of guilty. There is a 0 probability that these words were inspired by God. That means Mohammed lied. He was not a prophet, and Allah was not God. But that's good news, not bad. It frees us to explore more important questions. We can focus on how this scam was compiled, and more importantly, why. Once we understand how and why, we will know what can be done to stop Islam before it kills more of them and us.